Well, in other, I guess, video game related things, though
Yeah.
it's not the game, it's probably time to talk about Castlevania from
Woo.
Netflix, season 4. So Phil was here last time to talk about
Mhm.
Castlevania as well.
Mhm.
But now we're on the fourth and final season. I'm not sure where to begin. Um, Andrea, initial thoughts.
Yes.
Spoilers,
Um,
by the way, spoilers for
Oh,
yes,
Castlevania
correct.
seasons
Yes.
absolutely.
1 through 4 on Netflix.
Yes. So my overall thoughts, I was very happy with the way that Castlevania wrapped up. I thought it was very satisfying. Obviously, when you watch a lot of anime, as we do, even though I know this isn't anime, it's like an animated series. Um,
It's kind of like American anime. I've heard it referred to as.
yeah, I mean, for people who like maybe aren't into anime, it would be like their sort of like, segue into.
It
Um
literally was my segue into like more
yeah.
traditional anime. So,
So yeah, so there you go. But there's often like really unsatisfying endings, like like you get
mhm.
a season of a show and it just ends very abruptly with
Cowboy
like
Bebop,
a million yeah, classic.
which I just
With like
recently watched, but yeah.
Yeah, so it ends with like a million questions or like
Mhm.
storylines unwrapped up and you're
Mhm.
so unsatisfied as a viewer.
Mhm.
And I really was so happy that Castlevania wrapped up in a very satisfying way, wrapped up like the main storylines of its characters, kind of left like a little door, at the end with like the additional scene of Dracula and his wife, Vlad and
Mhm.
Lisa Tepesh, the
Mhm.
sort of like, oh, what could they do? They're gonna go travel the world. They're gonna, reunite
Mhm.
with their son. But
Mhm.
it wasn't an opening that left me with like lots of questions. It was just sort of like, oh, wouldn't it be interesting to, see how that goes? But I'm cool like ending here. So I thought this season was much like the others. It kind of started out a little bit slow and then built to the momentum where like the last couple of episodes were just absolutely, insane, fast paced, like epic battle sequences. Um, you know, like you're just kind of on the edge of your seat. And then I like that they took a final episode to like step back from all of that and wrap everything up. So excellent job.
How about you, Phil?
Oh yeah, I agree with everything Andrew said. I really was happy with how it all wrapped up. I didn't feel like it needed to be wrapped up this season. I would have been. I think they could have continued doing it if they'd really wanted to. I think there was
Oh, I
plenty they could have
agree.
continued doing with it. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
no,
you
I
said they couldn't, but I mean,
Yeah,
I
no,
think
if they wanted to, I would have been happy to watch, 4 more seasons of
sure,
Castlevania, but
right,
if this had to be the end of it, thank
right.
goodness they wrapped it up in a satisfying way.
I agree. I did get the impression with some of the storylines they wrapped up, like, well, I think they gave everyone a fine wrap up. I think I got the impression where maybe they were expecting it was going to go a couple more seasons, and then a
Sure.
couple more seasons, then got the message like, oh, this is actually going to be the last one, so they had to like reconfigure some things to like really wrap it up.
I don't know.
Yeah,
You
like
don't think
I don't know
so?
Hector and
about
Isaac
that.
maybe? Hector and Isaac were
Yeah,
I,
the only
I
ones that
think
I
that
thought
the
like, "Oh,
and like
interesting."
the three vampire or the four like
Well,
vampire
3
chicks,
now. Or no,
right?
2 now, really,
Two now,
actually.
right? Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it really, I guess you just there's that one scene where they're like, "Well, we're just gonna go off and live," and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was very
I don't know.
disappointed in that. I was
Yeah,
not disappointed, in Carmilla's death. That
no, that was really cool.
was epic and
Yeah,
amazing, and I
yes.
loved
yeah, that was
it.
awesome. Mm-hmm.
The whole way through the battle, like, the
Mm-hmm.
river of blood
Yeah.
that, like, I just everything about that was amazing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and, really loved, like, Isaac climbing up that, like, staircase as the blood was dripping down from, like,
Mm-hmm.
literally
Mm-hmm.
all the night creatures she just, effing
Mm-hmm.
destroyed
Yeah.
because he's such a
Mm-hmm.
badass.
Yeah.
So that was great. But yeah, I agree with you that two of the other four, Marana and Striga, just like leaving and
Mm-hmm.
being like, "Bye,
Right.
guess we
Yeah.
lost." That was underwhelming.
I
And then
I
you're
actually like that. I like that because
Really?
it
Okay.
was I thought that it was the easier route out for them would have been, oh, we're mad, they're attacking our sister, we're gonna storm in there, and then ultimately also the heroes will kill them. Because it instead they like recognized that
But
what
would
was
they
important to
though?
them.
Like I could see maybe Striga marching in there and just being like, like I'm here to lay waste. I'm a warrior. That's what I do. But
Hmm.
Marana's a thinker. Like she's a strategizer. Like maybe she would have been like, okay, well, like this is what happened. Maybe we throw our fortunes in with Isaac. Maybe, we rescue Lenore because they just assumed that
Hmm.
Lenore died. She didn't,
Sure. Right. Wow.
like,
Not that. Anyway.
I
But
mean, not then
that is what
anyway.
they
Right.
that is what they end up, doing is even though they made some miscalculations in what had actually occurred, they
Hmm.
made that calculation that the castle's lost. Like we want to go
Hmm.
back in with these few men
Hmm.
here,
Yep.
and if Carmilla's dead, then what force managed to take her out? We don't know
Hmm.
what we're going against there, and they
Hmm.
had become disheartened with the mission,
Hmm.
and no
You're right.
longer
Yep.
believed in the mission. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah. I
so
just,
no.
why
I
does a
just think like,
vampire always have to like think that I need to go in, I need to take over, I need to like, rule everything, and they
Hmm.
realize that like it's themselves together that makes them happy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
mhm.
that's what they need,
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Yeah.
they could have
True.
discovered, Lenore was alive, like
Hmm.
they
True.
made an assumption about that and, what might have changed their plans, like knowing that she was still alive, like just assuming that, oh, if, Carmilla died, then oh my God, of course Lenore did too.
I would think they probably thought that, but yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's logical, but
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
obviously we as the viewer are privy to
well.
information that they don't have.
Hmm.
So how do you think that would have played out if they would have gone to, sent ahead some minions basically to
Yeah, I
scope
mean,
out the area,
I would think they would have done some recon. Like Striga's no fool. Clearly,
and then
after
it,
that,
Hmm.
second episode where she just like puts on her day armor and just
Hmm.
decimates that human village, which was
Uh,
amazing.
it was
I
awesome. It was super
love that.
gross,
Like,
but it was a sweet scene.
yeah, but it was so cool. Like her Raven armor day
Yeah.
suit. Like,
Oh, it was so cool.
wow.
Yeah.
Like I just loved it. But
Also,
yeah,
why
so
haven't
she's
other why haven't other vampires done that? Like they're all like super wealthy. Like they have all the money they need. Like
yeah,
they
I
be
don't know if
walking around in those all the time.
she's like hoarding this secret of, how
Right.
she can walk around in the day, which I mean,
Yeah.
nice job. Like,
Yeah.
I would probably
well,
keep
the
Maybe
that
she's the one that
on
knows.
armies
the down
are
low.
they're puppets, just like Isaac, burnt through how many dozens and dozens of night beasts, night
Hmm.
creatures in an
Right.
attempt to
To get
take the
Carmilla.
castle.
Hmm.
Yeah, like it's the same thing. You throw your soldiers, their numbers to
Hmm.
throw at a problem, and
Yep.
so they don't.
I
Yeah, they don't get the lavish,
I
armor
did I
and
did find
protection.
it interesting that like maybe Marana didn't have it.
Hmm.
Not that she needs to like battle anybody, but like,
Sure.
That would
just
be
for
the thing there.
safety.
Right.
Sure.
Just, like thinking about how much like Striga obviously loved her, it would be like,
Sure.
oh, like you can't always hide in a coffin. Like that was very
Right.
convenient, but
Right. Right.
you know,
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I
But
was just a little surprised that maybe they just kind of like, that was like their wrap up for the storyline. And then we never saw them
yeah.
again.
Right.
Was
Yeah.
anyone
Because the
else
sisters were
hoping?
such a force. They were such a force in season 3 and they
Hmm.
seemed so unstoppable and then it just seemed,
Hmm. Kind of
with
fizzled
the
out
death of
in season 4.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But that
mean
was really my
the
only
death
That
of
big
Carmilla
criticism.
was epic, but yeah, the
Right.
rest of them fizzled.
Yeah.
But how do you see that ending then? So what would they have accomplished? Because that's the nature of our story, where
Hmm.
okay, the our heroes are going to be victorious.
Hmm.
So do they get
Sure.
in and then end up running away? Does one of them die and then the other one goes into a rage and die and like
Sure.
maybe
Right.
kills someone but gets killed in because of their bloodlust or
Sure.
like
Well, see,
Uh,
I didn't see this as like a major storyline. I saw it more as like, obviously a side storyline,
mhm.
but it could have been wrapped up a little bit more satisfying, pitting them against Isaac maybe and Hector,
Mm,
because the whole like idea that Isaac took over the castle and then he was like, I'm going to start this whole new thing, and we never see him again, and then
mhm.
kind of like his storyline gets wrapped up off camera where Hector's like, "Oh, and Isaac's off doing this thing while he's talking to
Mhm.
Lenore." You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that part was a little unsatisfying for me. Like Isaac was such like a big part of everything. He
Yeah.
had this whole new vision, and then
Mhm.
suddenly he was just like Lord of the Manor off
Mhm.
camera.
Right.
And I just thought maybe that could have been like some interesting like Isaac versus the sisters, or Isaac and Hector versus the sisters,
Mhm.
especially to get kind of some maybe like momentum shifting or power switching from last season where
Mhm.
like the sisters absolutely dominated Hector,
Mm.
like
Mhm. Mhm.
they tricked him and brought him into the fold and forced him to be their forge master.
Sure.
And it could have been interesting to pit, you know Hector and Isaac against them as like a side
Mhm.
plot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think overall, I mean, that would have been cool. I think overall,
Yeah, I
though,
mean,
like,
you do
I
what you
I
do with
loved
the
the,
time you have.
yeah, I loved it. I thought it was an awesome season. I've interestingly seen some takes where people are saying like, oh well, season 3 and 4 are okay, but like they're no season 2. And I was like, really? Like I
Whoa.
like the whole series, but I'm like, I love season 3 and I love season 4 even more. Like, so I don't get that take like that. People are thinking like the earlier seasons are better. I think the earlier seasons are really good.
Yeah.
well,
Um,
season
but
1 is just like a short film. And so I
right, it's
think
not
that's
even
really
Yes.
good because it's so concise and
sure.
it's just like it's impactful, it's to the point. Dracula is done very well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um there's like some real set pieces that are
Mhm.
impressive. Season 2 is so much setup. We're
Mhm.
Mhm.
introduced to the idea of the Forge Masters. The
Mhm.
idea we're introduced to Isaac and Hector. We're introduced to the
Mm.
the court of
Mhm.
Dracula and the
Right.
whole like
Mhm.
Right.
system and all the different vampires and like so
Yep.
there's a lot of exposition and world building that
Mhm.
needs to happen and takes place
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
season 2
Yep.
to the series' benefit, but to that season two's detriment.
I
Mhm.
agree.
Right.
So like, it was necessary, but it made the whole thing season 2 slow, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe
Yes.
people think back on it fondly, but then if you ever actually go back and watch it, you're like, oh, this is actually not. There's so much setup in this series or in this season that I didn't
hmm
realize. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be. Mhm.
I had, I think, unless I'm forgetting something, I had two, well, I'll say three issues with this season, and that's
Okay.
Okay.
for me that I really, really liked it. I one found a few like bits of monologuing to be
Mm.
repetitive.
Okay.
Varney is our vampire from London that everybody's heard of
Mhm.
Mhm.
course.
Mhm.
He
Sure. Of
um
course.
he rambles on in his fight against the other vampires working
Oh
with,
yeah.
a-
Yeah.
and
Oh,
there's
Ratko?
moments where I'm like, you just said that, but
Yeah.
in a different way. Like, and I just like
Mm. Sure.
some of those speeches need to be tidied up, and I found this with
Mm.
Isaac talking to Carmilla as well. It's a
Mhm.
little like explainy that I didn't need.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so I just
Sure.
thought some speeches needed to be tightened up in a couple
Sure.
places.
Mhm.
Um, Two,
With the
I what's that?
I was gonna say with the fly too, this fly night creature when he was like explaining to Isaac like this is
Yeah.
why are you having us do this? Like I like that scene, but I
Yep.
could see where people might be like, oh yeah, this conversation could have been done like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Just tightened up a bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I hear that.
And two would be that I wasn't happy with um Lenora's ending. I
Mm,
didn't understand that from her. And I also was hoping that her and Hector were gonna make a weird thing work.
Yeah, I
And
thought so too. I hope so too. Yeah.
because it was a like a bad, obviously not healthy relationship, but they
What?
learned something from each other over the course of the couple
Yeah.
seasons, and
Yeah.
I think each got better and each grew to care about one another.
Mhm.
Lenore, Hector became the only like escape she could have. No one else, she didn't
Yeah.
feel like she could even at that point confide in anyone else, and like she didn't have
Yeah.
a role anymore and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought they ended up kind of needing each other. And so for
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
her to just off herself,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like she could have at least had a life with Hector and then killed herself when he died, like of old age or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
Yeah.
agree. I thought they could have made a go with it, especially when Hector, cut off his finger with the ring on it. Because
Ugh.
of course, like they were never gonna really make a go of it with the ring on, because
Right.
Sure.
ultimately, like she was always gonna have some form of control, so that's not really
Mm-hmm.
like anything that would work out.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree, they could have made, like you said, a weird thing work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I also didn't really I was dissatisfied with her ending because she just spent this whole like monologue explaining why, Carmilla's initial plan, not the one where she like expanded to like we're going to take over the world like Pinky and the
Mm.
Brain style, but like
Right.
but their initial plan where she was like, okay, we're going to take over this stretch of land and the humans are going to be in pens and they're going to be in
Sure.
these like feeding livestock areas, and she was perfectly fine with that, and she kept defending it, and she was like, a vampire's virtue is that we bring order, and I see
Mm.
this as bringing order and stability. And then she
Mm-hmm.
like turned around and was like, but I can't live in a cage. I'm like, you realize that
Yeah.
Carmilla's entire plan was people living in giant cages, and you're
But that's
perfectly
Sure.
fine
food.
with that.
Right. They
Yeah.
don't see them.
Right, I
Yeah.
know,
You don't.
I just thought it was, like, a little ironic to, like, be like,
Sure.
"This is order, and this is noble, and this is a virtue," and not see, like, any connection with her living in a cage, and being
Right.
like, "I
Yeah.
can't live in a cage, I have to off
Mm-hmm.
myself."
Right.
So I was
Right.
like, "Ugh, I feel like you're smart enough," as she says, she's, like, the diplomat of the group, and,
Sure.
she's used
Yeah.
to, like, talking all of these solutions out. Like, you
Well,
really can't see the parallels
and she has
here.
relationships with humans. Like she has,
Right, right.
like she's talked to them. She knows. It's not the
She's
same as like
negotiated, yeah.
me. It's not the same as like me and like a pet pig where I'm like, oh, like I can't talk with a pet pig. Yes, they're a food
Right,
source
there's
and they're
not the
cute,
intelligent level, yeah.
but Lenore can talk to Hector and like realize he's like
Exactly,
intelligent. She might not think he's
exactly.
like
On her level,
le-
sure.
on her level or less
But they
than
can, yeah,
a
they
less
can
than her,
communicate.
but right.
Yeah.
It's just
So,
weird.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I thought that part, I agree, John, was a little
Hmm.
unsatisfying, both in the sense of, like, I wish she had lived and she and Hector could have been a thing, but also, like,
Hmm.
I wish they could have, like, acknowledged the irony of her being like, "I can't do this,"
Hmm.
Hmm.
versus, like, that was her entire plan for a large
Hmm.
swath of the population.
Yeah.
Yep.
Had you
Um.
guys heard? Sorry, I want to say. Had you guys heard that they're going to be doing more, like another more seasons of the show in the Castlevania universe, but not just with this character, with these
No.
characters in the
No, I
storyline?
hadn't heard that. Do you
Yeah.
know what they're planning to do?
I don't think there's any information on that as far as I could find,
Okay.
but that they are planning to do more, like Netflix and the production team is planning to do more in this Castlevania universe.
Okay.
Excellent.
So that me
Well.
like that heartens me, that we'll have more
Agreed.
Yeah.
similar stuff in the future.
And see, that could have. I guess that would be so. Kind of combine two things into one for three. Is that, um, well, okay, I'm going to separate them. So the third one is that I didn't need Dracula and his wife coming back at the end. Like I was
Mm,
fine with it, but it didn't need to
sure.
be there. And part of the thing with Dracula, if they are going to do more in this universe, with different characters,
Hmm.
it's like Dracula is always coming back like every 100
Sure.
years. It's what
Right.
the characters are often different, because
Right.
the humans don't live that long kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, that says that Dracula is finished, even though there's like a potential there. I think anything you do to it wrecks it because you
Mm-hmm.
can't have him fall again. You can't have him like,
Sure.
oh, something bad happens, his wife's
Wife dies
killed, and then he
again.
becomes,
Right.
yeah, and he becomes, well, or he becomes evil again. He's going wants to
Right.
destroy all the humans, kind of.
Right.
You can't do that again.
Unless
If
they
you were
did like
gonna
some
do,
like a prequel season
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they could do that for sure.
pre all this
When the
happening.
Belmonts are like big
Right.
and known,
Right.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's where I would think they would actually go with it, because this was
That's where I
pretty
would hope they would
final.
go. Yeah.
This seems like this would be the end of all the very like, so I could see them actually doing more prequel stuff. But
sure,
Yeah.
I mean, he
I would
kills
I would
Death at
hope
the
so.
end, so nowhere
Well,
is there
yeah,
anybody bigger or badder to destroy at the end of a future
mhm,
season than that? I don't know. I don't think so.
right.
that's true.
But
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
yeah,
3
sorry.
would be I don't know that or 4, I guess, would be that I don't know that I needed, like, again, I was kind of pleasantly happy, but I was surprised that they brought Trevor back at the end.
I was too.
I kind I
Yeah.
kind of I wanted because you could definitely see in the animation that he like popped, he like got sucked in,
Right.
you
Yeah,
could see that
Mhm.
he did. I
absolutely.
was waiting for him to be incinerated, and that
Right.
didn't happen. So you
Mhm.
already knew with that something had happened,
Right.
probably
Mhm.
infinite doorway stuff.
Right.
Mhm.
um I would have liked to see something where he's stuck in the infinite corridor, or he is somewhere
Mhm.
else and is alive. And
Mhm.
therefore we have a future mission for him. Like his life goal
Mhm.
now is to be to get back,
Mhm.
Sure.
and so we're ending on a hopeful note, not a
Mhm.
like, wow, everything is perfect note.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Would you agree? Were
Yeah.
Yeah.
you guys happy with how
Well, I
Well,
feel like
I sorry,
good.
I'm gonna quick go. Just knowing that they're gonna do something else in the Castlevania universe makes me actually more satisfied that this is like fully wrapped up.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like if they're gonna do something in the Castlevania universe but not use these characters, then I'm happy that their storyline is wrapped up
Mhm.
because that means we can fully divorce ourselves from like these characters are going to be in anything. If they left
Mhm.
something open, it would have been like, oh, even though they're doing something like a prequel with the Belmont family, let's
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
maybe they're going to go find Trevor in the infinite corridor and that's going to tie in and
Sure.
Mm.
XYZ. Now we
Sure.
can just like completely enjoy something separate.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Like
I
full
think,
resolution.
yeah, full
Mhm.
resolution. So
Mhm.
while this series ended on a more, happy note and probably, something more upbeat than we're used to with something like Castlevania,
Mhm.
where,
Mhm.
so much of it is rooted in, like these almost seemingly hopeless situations and these, insurmountable odds. And,
Mhm.
many a time situations do not work out in our main character's favor. Basically Alucard's whole storyline as an example.
Yep.
Um, I'm actually more satisfied that, this is he's back, he's here. They didn't make a whole happy drawn out like scene of it.
Mhm.
Like it was just enough of him being back and them being all like sarcastic and bantery with each other.
Mhm.
Okay. Like now I can close this
Sypha calling for
chapter.
someone to kill him after she just got him back.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
Alucard, making stupid references about his dumb name and whatever and
Right.
stuff like that. Like I'm happy
Treffy.
to close. Yes, exactly. I'm happy to close the chapter on
Yeah.
these characters then
Yeah.
and completely move on to new ones who have nothing to do or very tangentially have something to do with these characters.
Yeah. I agree with that, and John, I agree with you that I was a little surprised. I actually thought I hadn't thought about him getting sucked into the infinite corridor. I actually thought he like died with
Oh,
Death when he killed
yes.
him. So I was
Hmm.
actually pretty okay with him having been like sacrificing himself to save like
Hmm.
millions of humans, of his fellow humans, and
Mhm.
Sypha deciding to stay in the town with Alucard and his new girl,
Greta.
and like build that town there and have her babies. And
Mhm.
I was actually pretty okay with that. Was surprised when they brought Trevor. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but
Yep.
I was surprised when they brought him back, and
No, I was
that
Mhm.
was fine
mhm.
too. I mean, that makes it for a happier ending. But I think it would have
Yeah.
been fine if they had left him as like this sort
Yeah.
of um Lebowski Jesus, sacrificing himself for to save humanity.
Yeah.
That would have been cool with me, actually.
Yeah,
I
I
might have
think
liked it
either
a little
way,
bit more.
yeah, I mean, it would have had more impact.
Hmm.
This was, you know, uh, again, for the end of it, it's fine for it to be happy. I'm okay with that because, like
Hmm.
you say, it's been so much dour. It's nice to
Hmm.
have that.
Sure.
But yeah, it would have been a little more impact, for sure,
Yeah.
if he had just been gone.
You're right.
Yep.
Because I think he
So
he fully went in there expecting to be killed by death.
yeah,
I think he
Yeah.
yeah,
expected to die. But he's that kind of guy where he's like, well, I this is what's right, so I'm gonna go do it. Like, even though
Mhm.
he, has his character flaws, like that's the kind of
Mhm.
like character he is, which, makes him such a underdog to root for and such a, great
Right.
character. Um,
he's a
yeah.
Han Solo kind of character. He
Yeah, or
doesn't
like
want to be involved. He doesn't want to take
right.
part. Like, I'm out of this. This is stuff of the whatever. But
Mhm.
then gets wrapped up into it, rediscovers his
Mhm.
conscience, and just like
Mhm.
kind of fights it, but he just can't not do the right thing
Mhm.
ultimately.
Right.
Right. Right, right, right. I mentioned Lebowski because I just
Mm.
recently rewatched The Big Lebowski for the first time in, I don't know, 10, 15 years, something like that. And so I had that fresh in my mind when I was watching this final season, and it struck me how the similarities, because they talk in that movie about how you guys are familiar with the Big Lebowski. I'm assuming, and most of your viewers are too.
Familiar with
I
but
am, but John is not.
What? You've never seen it?
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we actually just talked about this a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago because we were talking about our
Oh,
favorite Julianne Moore movies,
oh,
and
oh, yeah,
I hadn't mentioned The Big Lebowski, just because like her role in it I think is
yeah.
secondary, obviously. So
Sure.
I'd mentioned other movies, but I was just
She's
saying
great in
like it's
that,
such
though.
she is great, and it's such a cult
Hmm.
classic that I had said
Yeah,
I felt guilty for not mentioning it, and then
sure.
John hit me with this bomb that he had never watched it.
Are you a fan of Jeff Bridges at all, John?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep.
You have to see it then, man. It's like one of his best movies.
I know.
Oh,
I
okay.
know.
plus
Well,
plus
that's
John
put that on your
Goodman.
homework assignment. And John Goodman. Oh, and Steve Buscemi.
Yep. John
Julianne Moore.
Turturro. Yeah.
Yep. John Turturro. Tara Reid's in it briefly.
Randomly.
Um,
Yeah.
randomly. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Oh,
Yes. Yes.
so good, so good. You got to check it out.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, he was just one of the best. He is
Yeah.
so
His
good.
character in this movie is a secondary character, but it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, you'll love it. But so this won't make a lot of sense to you, but the dude, he goes by the dude, Lebowski in the movie. Uh, that's kind of how he is. It's like he's kind of a bum, but
Mhm.
when pressed, he feels like he has to do kind of the right thing, and he gets sort of entangled in this whole. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but he's kind of a very like it's similar to Belmont in terms of like just kind of floating around, drinking too
Hmm.
much, making sarcastic comments, and then when it comes down to the wire, he
He's
does
a
what needs to be
stand-up
done.
guy.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yep.
so it's just
I think
it's
it's a
yeah.
good. I mean, it's a good like archetype because it's easy for everyone to see themselves there. Everybody
Hmm.
wants to think that, well, I do all these things that I know aren't the best.
Hmm.
In my moments of weakness,
Hmm.
am kind of sucky sometimes,
Yep.
but I know that if push came to shove,
Hmm.
I'll do the right thing.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
Yep.
like people hold on to that idea,
Yep. Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
that I, so
Yeah,
it's relatable.
for sure. Yep. Yeah, so that was good.
What else? There was one other thing I thought that I kind of didn't like. I guess my list is growing, but otherwise, like they're hard to think about because they do such a good job with the animation in this too.
Mm.
Like when it
Mhm.
matters, some of the
Mhm.
action sequences in here
Mm.
are right up there with some of the best
Yeah.
in anime. I
Mhm.
would argue. Um, I was thinking about how they have to sit and animate that whip, how that's got to be difficult
Oh,
Mhm.
to do.
I love it.
Um,
Mhm.
I love how they managed to get everyone to play to their strengths. You know, it
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
great seeing the group back together, the
I
three of them.
Yes.
I was
That
gonna say
reunion
I
was
love that, and
everything.
that might be kind of an American thing too, where like it's like, oh, get the gang back together, where they might not
Mhm.
be as common in like in classic anime. I'm not sure, but that certainly felt like a very Americanized thing. But I loved it. I mean, I'm an American, but
Hmm.
um, when they
Well,
all
and
kind of like hop back
we've
into
been
the
waiting
castle,
so
awesome.
long. Yeah,
Hmm.
we've been
Mm-hmm.
waiting
True.
so long. Like, I mean, they
Yeah.
separated at the end of
Yep.
season 2. You know, we've
Right.
gone like
Yeah.
whole seasons
Right. Right.
without them together. So like
Yep.
we've been anticipating this
Yep.
reunion for a very long time, and I don't think it
Mm-hmm.
let anybody down at all. You
No,
know,
No.
that was so awesome. That
it
whole
was it,
fight scene
yeah, it
sequence.
was fantastic, and it was like they didn't even miss a beat. They were just like
Mm-hmm.
back together. They were like,
Yep.
this trinity that just like worked off each
Yep.
other so well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really fun to, watch the multiple battles that
Mm-hmm.
they, got themselves into.
Yeah.
Um, even when you knew that they were gonna win, when they're
Mm-hmm.
like fighting this
Sure.
like this, very secondary battle against these three sorcerers on their way to
Mm-hmm.
Saint Germain.
Sure.
you
Yep.
know
That
you
was
knew you
super
knew the
cool.
whole time that they were gonna win, but it was
Right.
still like the thrill of watching that,
Mm-hmm.
watching not only like the amazing animation and
Mm-hmm.
like the amazing use of an amazing and inventive use of magic
Mm-hmm.
on screen, but just like watching them together was
Mm-hmm.
something, just as a viewer, just felt like, oh, I've been waiting for this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
gripped, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys a question since we're
oh
on
yeah.
the subject. So, is there a particular, is there a word for the technique they use? There was a couple moments in, especially like in episode 9, and then I've seen it done in other animes as well, like One Punch Man. I've seen it, but where they will have like in this super intense battle scene, they'll have this these couple frames where like you can actually see like the drawing, like they kind of flash it in
Oh
there.
yeah, like the
Like what?
outline kind of thing.
Yeah, like they did it with Sypha's face
Yep.
towards the
Mm.
end of like the battle sequence in I think episode 9, it just like
Hmm.
blew my mind, and it was
Yeah.
just so cool. But I don't know if that's an actual like animation technique that they throw in there, or because I know it's not just this show. Like I said, what they do
Yeah.
pretty
I don't know
frequently
if
in
there's a
One Punch
name
Man. I feel
for it.
like.
Yeah.
So.
Just change when anytime they change the medium,
Mm-hmm.
leaves an
Yeah.
impact. So
Right.
there's that definitely see in anime where they change the medium for when someone's going through some sort of trip or it's really psychedelic or whatever.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, going black and white pencil
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
Hmm.
things. It's just anytime that you can have and it's one of the great benefits of animation that
Mm-hmm.
you can change tone and create an
Mm-hmm.
impact by switching it up like that. I've seen ones where it's
Yeah.
like all of a sudden it's looks like it's chalk or whatever, or you can look at
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
a more,
Yeah.
I think it was Maid Sama is a very it's very
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
different in the way they do it, but all like very there's a couple different versions of the characters. There's the
Mm-hmm.
realistic ones, the ones that are normal. But as soon as
Mm-hmm.
anything silly happens, they're drawn completely differently.
Oh,
They're
sure. Yeah.
really
Mm-hmm.
like gooey faced and
Super
chibi and
cartoonish. Yeah.
cartoony yeah. And
Yep.
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
that adds to the like understanding of the type of moment we're seeing.
Sure.
And
Yep.
so yeah,
Sure.
when I don't know which moment you're talking to, but I'm guessing, it's with we were talking with Sypha, if it
Mm-hmm.
goes all like pencily and stuff to get
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
harsh and like
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
I no, I
or
Mm-hmm.
I love that
also
thing.
Also, I mean, a couple frames in Trevor's final battle with Death, you
Mm,
know, like there's like a background color and then there's
mhm.
like charcoal outlines of some of the
Mhm.
characters. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
there's like this
Mhm.
couple of frames. It actually reminded me, John, of Kill la Kill when we were watching
Mm,
some of that, and you get like that power up battle moment where it's just like so intense that you
Mhm.
yep.
can't realistically draw it, so you're just like giving these like flashes of color to convey this
Yeah.
like intense moment, and then you just have outlines, you
Mhm.
know.
Yep.
It's just so intense the visible eye can hardly watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we think Kill la Kill is specifically made for like teenage boys? I think maybe perhaps it is. I watched like half of the
No.
first. I watched like half the season a couple months ago, and I have to pick it back up. But
Half
You
the
should pick
season?
it back
Okay.
up. It's
it
amazing.
was it was pretty funny. Yeah, it's just it's kind of
There's
it's definitely kind of a riot, but it's
Yes.
bizarre.
yeah. So what I find very interesting about all of the work that I've seen thus far by that team is that they have these grandiose, insane visuals and
Mhm.
like over the top style that if you like they're never starter animes for someone. They're
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
like you got to be in it. And
Sure.
they do this really nuts stuff and then there's always like a pivot or a turn or there's a deeper meaning
Mhm.
behind everything. And
Mhm.
it's not
Sure.
like, necessarily blow you away or whatever, but it like gives a credibility
Mhm.
to all the over the top stuff, I
Mhm.
think, and like
Mhm.
a weight. And maybe Kill la Kill is the least of that, but
Sure.
Gurren Lagann
Mhm. Yep.
becomes a
Yeah.
I watched
completely
that.
different show halfway through,
Yeah, I agree.
completely
Yep.
different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then let's see, brand new animal. It's a little more obvious where they're going with that, but it's the
Mm.
same kind of thing.
Okay.
Darling in the Franks, very again, very like mature themes on
Mhm.
top of like incredibly overt sexual innuendo.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Okay.
I love what they do. I absolutely love what they
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched the whole. I watched all of Gurren Lagann. That was awesome. But yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't ever see half Kill la Kill, but that's the only ones I've seen from that like team. So.
Let's see. Uh, I loved one of my favorite things of this season was Hector's turn because I knew like in the
Yeah.
games he's not like this pathetic,
Mhm. Oh,
and like
sure. Right.
really coming into his own more here
Yeah.
and understanding his situation, like kind
Mhm.
Mhm.
of being slap sober, you
Sure.
know. Oh,
Yeah.
not thinking with my penis anymore. Okay, so like then just
Yeah.
and then
He was a busy little bee. Like, I
yeah,
couldn't believe when he got down to it, when he was telling Isaac everything he'd done, I was like, "My
Mhm.
God."
Yeah.
I just,
mhm.
I thought he was
Yeah.
just like moping around,
No,
and
he's
no.
he's like sneaky. He's more sneaky than people give him credit for. I feel like he's
Yeah,
plotting. Yeah. Yeah, that was
clearly.
See,
cool.
that's where if I was coming up with something to do a story on, it would be something with Hector and Isaac.
Hmm. Okay.
Um,
See, okay, see, this is where like my whole thing comes in from earlier, like Hector and Isaac versus the remaining sisters. Like, could have been really interesting because
Mhm.
Isaac started off, you thought he was just like insane and kind of crazy and just like, what are you doing? And then he comes in and he's like
Mhm.
super logical. Like, I have a new
Yeah.
vision for humanity and we're gonna
Sure.
live beyond,
Yeah.
just today, which vampires keep telling us is all we have. And
Sure.
like, could have been really interesting.
Mm.
And now that Hector, like you said, has been slapped sober, tables have turned and he's the one, or he was the one, keeping Lenore captive. Could have been
Mhm.
really interesting.
Yeah. I wonder if that's enough to sustain a whole like a side season.
See,
No, I
to
don't I
me,
don't think so. I think
Oh,
I
just
think you
mean
would
if
have
they had
needed I think you would have needed like something, side plot, like the same way Castlevania wasn't just about Trevor and Sypha and Alucard,
Mhm,
we had
mhm.
Hector and Isaac in this
Sure,
whole like
right,
subplot. You
right.
would you would definitely need another subplot
Sure.
to sustain it, but I think it
Mhm.
would have been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
It's
be
true.
okay with a season that was about Hector and Isaac, but then also the vampire sisters, but separate. I feel like they're
Oh,
on
okay,
different
okay,
paths, and I'm happy with them being
Mhm.
on different paths. To me,
Sure.
okay.
to me, they're beyond like, you know, Isaac is doing his own thing. Whatever
Mhm.
that ends up being, I feel like it's not about seeking out and getting vengeance upon two
Mhm.
vampires that left, you know.
Sure.
And Hector,
Well,
I
right.
feel like he's beyond that too. And then the sisters, I feel like they're all just done with that situation and
Mhm.
moving on in distinctly different paths. And
Yeah.
I'd love to see the adventures
Well,
that they end up having.
sure.
Mhm.
I mean, they're definitely done now that Lenore killed herself.
Well,
You
right.
know what I mean? Like they could have crossed paths had Lenore lived and maybe figured out that, a way to communicate with Marana and Striga.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
like there could have been something there. But yeah, with Lenore, walking into the sun, that's like the last tie that could have been severed. Like
Sure.
Marana and Striga now
Right.
definitely have no reason to go back.
True. Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, I think they're gonna take it in a completely different direction. Um,
Yeah.
and even if the studio doesn't end up doing more like strictly Castlevania, didn't they also do Blood of Zeus? John, was it the same studio that did Castlevania that did Blood of Zeus?
I
Like,
think it's the same, might be the
Mm.
same animation studio.
okay,
I don't think it's the same
Alan.
like writer director.
okay. Well, yeah, that
It's
could be
different.
the animation
The
studio, but
brain behind it is Warren Ellis for Castlevania and stuff,
okay,
and I don't think that he has involvement in Blood of Zeus.
okay. But I
Okay.
guess my point
But
being, if they're
he,
going to continue making like quality, sort of like American cartoons, or whether you call it anime or not, like I'll be happy
Sure.
'cause that season was awesome too
well, it was the
and
I think
felt
it was the
similar in
director,
tone.
or showrunner, or someone is
Mm.
he's going to be doing um what is it, Devil May Cry. So that
Oh,
was
okay,
talked about, and so there was
okay.
some speculation that they were going to use the Infinite Corridor to like cross the worlds. I
Oh,
remember talking about this and not being very excited about that.
oh,
Mm.
Like
okay.
when something, even though they like divert a lot from story of
Hmm.
Castlevania, it feels Castlevania to me. I feel like it's
Mhm.
Sure.
respectful of
Hmm.
what Castlevania is, and it's easily
Hmm.
recognizable as such. And
Hmm.
so all of a sudden, it'd be weird for them to we're going to mix together these two video game worlds.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like that. But a separate Devil May Cry show could be good.
Yeah.
So if they
Yeah.
do that,
That'd be
yeah.
cool. Okay. Serious question. Could
Mm.
you cut off your own finger with Isaac's little knife?
Oh,
You guys know
Boy,
my
yeah. I
answer,
mean,
but I think I
boy,
cut my
I
well,
finger at
desperate times.
post reception gathering, John, and almost passed out. So I think you know,
yep,
yeah, my answer
Phil
there.
cannot.
But yeah, not so much for me.
I
But
mean, but again, desperate times,
I guess be like,
it's
I mean,
do
like,
I
I
horribly
okay,
maim
Phil.
myself or just stay with enslaved to this hot vampire chick?
Right, I was gonna say like half of
Probably to
it would
stay
be you not
enslaved.
really wanting to cut your finger off.
Right.
Like half would be like you being like blood, no thanks, and
Do
the
I
other half would
want
be
to escape?
like this chick
I
is
don't.
awesome. Like yeah.
Right.
So I mean,
I really
if you
want.
were enslaved to a less hot vampire chick, like
Yeah.
what if she was like Jabba the Hutt, and you
I
were
think
That's a
she could
Princess
be
lot
Leia?
less.
I think
That's a
she could be
big
horrible and I
difference.
could be very desperate. I don't think I could just physiologically make myself do that. I'm
Yeah.
surprised anybody could, to be frank.
I mean, Hector is very cavalier about it.
Yes,
It
he
would probably it would
was.
I would have to like psych myself up a lot more than
No,
Hector did.
Yeah.
right. I'd have to like use like I don't know. No. Ugh. Ugh.
Or
So
you
Yeah.
gross.
just or tell someone else to do it. Can you do it for me?
Right,
Right.
do it
like,
for me,
"Isaac,
yeah.
come in there and do it." Like,
Yeah.
He's
"I'll
like, oh,
stick
let
out
me
my
just,
finger and you do
yeah.
it."
It was like he was like just like cutting like
Slice of
the
cheese for some
right, just like
crackers, yeah.
let me just like lop that digit off, no big deal.
Yeah.
Cauterize it with the the
The
heat from the
same
blade.
knife, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally
Well,
normal.
it's one of those things, hopefully you'll never have to know.
God,
You'll
Yeah.
never have to
God,
really know.
hopefully not. Yeah,
I mean,
hopefully
people
not.
have, what, sawed their own leg off to get out of stuff or whatever, like
Right, or
Yeah,
animals
the
do that, people
guy
do
who
that
that,
cut off
dude.
his own arm
Yeah,
in,
Yep.
what was
or
it, 127 hours or
yeah,
whatever when he was
Yep.
yeah,
trapped?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's whoo. Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
rats not
compared to
bite
that,
their
a
own leg
finger
off, right?
seems
If they
not
get
so
stuck.
bad.
Yeah, I guess that guy did it with like a Swiss Army knife or something, and not a freaking
Yeah,
like demonic like sharp blade like
right,
Isaac has. So
right.
Well, Phil, I want to see you and Dana for Renfest be
hmm
Hector and
oh,
Lenore,
Lenore.
there you
oof.
Hmm.
All
go.
right, yeah, that'd be cool. We could probably rock that.
We could have a fun Castlevania group going on.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Although I think aren't we doing Vikings this year, or is that not established?
That was the plan, but I mean, we could be flexible. It could be fun.
All right,
We'll
that'd
talk.
be
We'll
cool.
talk.
All right, that sounds good.
What else? Any other big thoughts? I mean, there was a lot happened. I really
Yes.
didn't think there were much for lulls. They really moved forward.
hmm
I was just very happy to see Alucard pulling himself up.
Yep.
Mhm.
Meeting Greta, they
hmm
seem nice together. I like their
hmm
dynamic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
I
I
was a
wanted
little
to
interested by where these other quite powerful night like monsters and stuff that were loyal to Dracula yet were coming
hmm
from. Like they seem to be against a whole different group.
right. Right.
I
They
got the impression that the death character had like been
Varney.
like right, but because he's like not like literally like the Grim Reaper, but like this force of like this like a natural like this being.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I
Yeah.
understood it. I figured he had control over these other
Mm,
like naturals, like these other like dark naturals in the world that they inhabit. And
sure.
so I assumed he was the mastermind behind like pulling them all there, and the like creepy witches who were sewing together dead body parts and all those things. I
Right.
assumed he was behind all of that. All the I mean,
Well,
so
he
not
was.
Dracula so much.
Yeah, he clearly was since, he reveals himself to Saint Germain
True.
where like
Yeah.
he was the woman who was like
Right.
bringing him back to the path of alchemy, and then he was
Yep.
like Varney the vampire, like gathering the
Yep.
vampires together. So I
Yep.
just sort of assumed he transformed into whoever he needed to be to convince all these people to get together. And
hmm
then of course we as the viewer, and I think probably, the other characters like were surprised when he reveals himself as like literally death, because I don't
Right.
think he appeared to everybody as death and was like, come on,
Right.
let's get together.
Right.
I
Right.
think
No. Yeah. No.
he just sort
Right.
of appeared as whoever he needed to be to bring them together.
Right. hmm hmm
So, what do you think then? You mentioned him, and that was one of the more confusing moments to me that I was kind of waiting for the explanation. And
Sure.
ultimately, the larger goals made sense, but I wanted to see what you guys thought of character motivation for Saint Germain and his path, his sort of
hmm
descent. Like, how did you feel
hmm
about that? Because I
Yeah.
remember him going in the corridor, talking
hmm
to this other supposedly other alchemist,
hmm
and leaving thinking, well, that's kind of, I don't know, like that seems very
Yeah.
oddly specific that this is the path you must take. And then,
I
hmm
agree.
like, I thought that
I
was a
agree.
maybe they needed to, like, something else needed to be the thing
to
that,
push him down that path.
yeah,
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
I more feel like I understood that he was going to undertake a journey that, at the
hmm
end of it he would be reunited with his love. He would need
hmm
to do whatever he would need to do. but I really didn't understand how like he just sort of accepted like, okay, my path is bringing back Dracula. You know what
Yeah,
I
in
mean?
the
Like
body of like
this
her
Rebus thing.
hermaphroditic body, you know, like
Right. The
Yeah.
Rebus. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't understand that. That to me was very confusing. It was very specific. It was almost too specific to see how it related. And even with his like speech at the end where he was like, I'm going to bring back, Dracula and Lisa, and they're going to be this Rebus that can control the infinite corridor. It was like, but still how?
Yeah.
And why does that relate to you and finding the woman you love, especially once like death was revealed and death was like, I'm gonna have Dracula go crazy, it's not about the infinite corridor at
Yeah.
all.
Right.
It made a little more sense to me once because I noticed the ring like that Hector had and stuff
Yes,
put on the
on the
body that they
Rebus.
would animate. Yeah, and so once I was like, oh, Saint Germain hat. That's I thought that was connected to someone else. I didn't connect in my head that it was connected with Saint Germain's ring.
Right.
So once is like, okay, well that I guess so then you bring those two back, they come into this body, they have the ability to control the infinite corridor, and now you have the ability to control them. So there's your
Mhm.
ticket. Um, but so it kind of became clear to me then, but that took a long time to understand
Yeah.
that. And I
Yeah.
just didn't know if it just seemed like there could have been a more elegant, less complicated way. Because when the alchemist is talking to him, it's like, "Have you forgotten the main?" It's like, did I watched all of Full Metal Alchemist. I
Yeah.
don't remember that being the mission. You
Yeah.
know, like the stated goal to maybe
I,
there's some
And
alchemy that I mean I'm not a
I
practitioner,
actually
but
looked it
well,
up
I
though,
looked
and
it up.
apparently that is the ultimate goal of like
Yeah.
alchemy. I looked up
okay.
Erebus and all
Same.
that. It's like a real thing. I mean, not
Yeah.
So
'Cause
a real goal.
well, right. Yeah, but no, it's like the stated goal of alchemy.
Right.
Yeah. Because I
but
had to look that
why?
up too, because I was like, what is this?
I forget exactly. I didn't go that deep down the rabbit hole into alchemy. Less like I get flagged on some sort of no-fly list or something. But
DuckDuckGo,
But yeah,
VPN,
it's something
double
about
sign in.
it, like the perfection of creation, like
right.
is made whole in the rebus, which is like the dual nature, like finally becoming harmonized as one.
Sounds
There's
right.
it,
Sure.
it's very like abstract, of course, because
Mhm.
like how would you do this? And it's there's no like actual thing that you can point to, so it's like I said, it's all very like abstract and very like theoretical.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it is the stated goal of alchemy, like the ultimate goal, but it still didn't quite make sense as Saint Germain's purpose for a long time, and how he just like accepts it as his purpose. Do you know what I
That,
mean?
Mhm.
Like
yeah. He
there
struck
needed to
me
be
as
a
a
more tangible, like, I don't know, a tangible goal or a tangible thing for him to follow, for us to follow, to make him make sense.
yeah. He struck me as someone who like decided to go down a path and then like realized maybe this wasn't the best idea, but he
Yeah.
was so
Mhm.
invested and he'd already done so many horrible things. That's like, well, I might as well keep proceeding forward. I mean, until the very end
Yep.
when he got to the point where he's like, well, okay, I can't do, I gotta, And so
Right.
I'm glad he redeemed himself a little bit. I love Saint Germain. I loved him in season 3. He's one of my favorite new characters.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was a little bummed when he kind of had this descent. So I'm glad he did come around in the end.
Mhm.
And
I am
I think it's also like poetic justice that he like didn't he died, so he didn't like get away scot free. He still like
Mhm.
got murdered or whatever or died in the chaos, but at
Yeah.
least he
yeah.
had a clear conscience when he died. Well,
And
I
save
like
Trevor, possibly.
sorry.
yeah, that's to me that his redemptive thing. He gets
Sorry,
to save
possibly
Trevor.
save Trevor.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
assuming he's the one who like, got him into the
Oh,
infinite
oh yeah, he
They
corridor.
did.
show
Yeah.
him like tap
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
finger, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like something that you could have like easily missed or, like
Yeah.
assumed
Mhm.
that,
Yeah. You're right.
something
Yeah.
else happened. So, you know. Yeah,
I
Alan
still
says
go
played
with
by
the
Bill Nighy. I love it. Such a great
Uh-huh.
character. Played by Bill Nighy. Such a
Oh,
great
yeah.
character actor. I love so much of the casting in Castlevania. I love
Yeah,
the
for
voices.
sure. I am very happy to see James Callis.
Mhm.
Battlestar Galactica is maybe my favorite show ever, and James Callis does a spectacular job in that. So I
Yep.
was just happy to see him in something really good again,
Yep.
even if it's just his voice. I was gonna say I still am holding out that Saint Germain isn't dead and that he is the mad mage magician guy that
Oh,
Isaac
from season 3,
showed
yeah.
Oh,
in the tower in season 3, because the resemblance is there, the like
Yep.
occupation is there,
Mhm.
the I can see him like, he warped, used the infinite
Sure.
corridor to, to save Trevor at the last moment.
Yep.
If for all we know, he went somewhere too,
Yep.
Could be.
Yep.
and
Yeah.
things get timey-wimey, and so
Yeah.
I mean he's dead twice over now on that plane of existence.
Wow.
But he
Yeah.
spent like countless ages looking for his love and never found her or whatever, and ends up
Yeah.
back on Earth, mad as a hatter.
Yeah.
So,
That thought, but
Yeah, that'd be a
um,
I
that'd be a
really
fun
feel like
spinoff.
yeah,
if they had just made this season like a couple extra episodes longer as the
Yeah.
finale for the series, and then they could have, I think, taken a little more time with some of those things, like wrapping up a little bit more nicely or giving a little more color to like the Isaac and Hector's stories,
Mhm.
and the sisters and the vampires, and like fleshing out a little bit more of Saint Germain's descent and like his motivation and like how that all happened.
Yeah.
Um, but I still think it was awesome. But yeah, if it had been just a couple
yep,
episodes longer, they could have really done that.
yeah. I'm very satisfied. I'm happy that we have 4
Hmm.
quality seasons and
Yep.
it's
Mhm.
done. It's wrapped up. It's nice to have that instead of seeing something like just peter out and like
Yes, and be
end
sad.
falsely. Yeah. So I yeah, couldn't really be happier.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Agreed.
anything else? I didn't really look through you guys' notes, so I don't know. But if there any other lasting
I
Mm,
did
or
I did
parting
want to
comments
say,
or
because we haven't focused on Alucard too much,
mm-hmm.
other than to
mm,
be happy for him that he finally gets something happy in this season.
yeah.
Because obviously he's gotten a lot of shit over the seasons. But I did want to say also, I think the ending season parallels with him and his father really cool. Because he talks, early on in the season about, oh my God, I'm turning into my father, where he's like alone in his castle. He's drinking way too much. He's putting people out who, either
Mm-hmm.
betray him or visit him. He's like putting them out on stakes as a
Oh,
warning.
right. Yeah.
And then he kind of ends up the season as the good parts of his dad,
Yeah.
like falling in love with a human woman who like
Hmm.
redeems him and makes him care
Hmm.
about
Sure.
life again, and like,
Yep.
taking interest in the village and like building all of that up. So I
Yep.
thought that was kind of cool that like he was always so afraid about turning into his dad, but then he like turns into the good parts. And then we do
Yeah.
see like the good part of Dracula come back. Even though I agree, John, like we didn't necessarily need to have that extra scene at the end.
Hmm.
It's nice to like see them be the good parts of themselves after, obviously, of course, like literally battling each other and son killing father.
Right.
So
It's to me a little like undermining to the character of Dracula in the
it's a
way
little
that they do
Disney.
that.
It's a little
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
you know, he's a,
there's
he's a
there's a
good dad
power.
now. Visit his son in the
Yeah,
future, and they're gonna,
or
make
or
up and
it
whatnot. But
or it's an anime thing. They do it in anime all the
yeah,
time. You have your villain or whatever, and then turn out to not be such a bad guy, and then they're your
right.
ally.
they just needed the one thing, which like for him was, his wife,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
now,
So
like I'm okay again and we could travel the world and it could be adorable, like, our little like
yeah,
travel blog adventures, but
there's a difference between like having a character that is sympathetic and tragic. Dracula is a tragic character, has a tragic
Mhm.
story, but then you kind of destroy that and he's, besides just being relatable, he's
Mhm.
now like redeemed,
Yeah.
almost. He's like he's seen in a completely different way. And so I think that it fails a little bit in like creating like what's unique about Alucard then as well. Like that
Yeah.
was the potentially amazing thing that comes out of the union of evil and this
Mhm.
human woman. And yeah, I could have done without it. I could have done
Yeah,
without it.
I could have ended with Isaac's speech about, I don't want to bring Dracula back because even when he was there, he seemed tired and sad and like, he wasn't really in it because he was missing his wife and like, I've abandoned that idea.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
I
Hmm.
could have ended there and been like,
Yeah.
"Yep, I agree," because
Yeah.
season 2 was a lot about him
Like
like
let him rest.
he like spiraled out of control after like the first season was so focused on like I need revenge against the people who killed my wife and it was so compelling, and then he sort of lost it when he tried
Hmm.
to like
Yep.
take it bigger and tried to like take over the world and like show the world like you're going to suffer my pain, and
Hmm.
then we could have just like left it, but
Yep.
I guess
Yes,
one
indeed.
one thought I had, something I really appreciate about Castlevania is that, I mean, obviously it's like a horror cartoon. It's like based on
mhm,
like monster themes. But like every season, I feel like they throw in these like scenes or like monologues that are like genuinely horrifying. Like like the
Generally,
scene where
what?
horrifying,
horrifying.
like
Mm.
for like a cartoon TV show. But like in the season one where they burn Dracula's wife at the stake, that's
Mhm.
horrible, horrible. And then in season three, when you find out that that town, that leader of that town is like sending kids to fall
Yep.
into a pit of like just like
Yes.
horrible, horrible. I mean, it's like cool to see, and it's like cool. It's like everyone likes to be titillated, right? But or like and like
Yeah.
all made up. But this season, I loved what they threw in with the vampire associate of Arnie's. I forget his name.
Ratco.
Ratko, thank you. I thought he was awesome, and like his the change that he went under, that he undertook when he like kind of made his real like sort of identity known, and like his monologue and about just like
Mhm.
the things he's done and like the war he's fought, and just like that
Yeah.
was like cold blooded stuff. But it was really cool and really good TV. But that dude, that dude's
Yeah.
not messing around at all, and that was bone chilling stuff. It's just really well done.
Yeah, and I thought it was
Yeah.
especially effective, like, he has that whole speech about, like, "I am perfection," "I've
Hmm.
perfected death, and, I am
Hmm.
destruction," and, you know, it was amazing, and then Varney's comeback was so lame. He's like, "Well, I'm Varney." You know what I mean? Like, he was
Right,
just like, "And I'm the brains here." And then but then it was
right.
so cool because it made you underestimate his character so much that when he was
Yeah,
revealed his death, it was
right.
like,
Uh,
Yeah.
like, this
yeah,
buffoon is
right.
actually, like, the puppet
It's
master, you
it's
know?
funny thinking back to that scene when he's like seeming so like lame, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, that
Yes.
was death the
Yep.
whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
Yeah, well, and it just becomes like this total irony, like Ratko giving this amazing speech about how he is death, and death
the
is
death.
like,
Yeah.
mm.
Actually.
That's
Uh,
So,
funny.
yeah. But
Yeah, I think that animation has trouble with it sometimes because I think it's easy for people to, both watching it and making it to get in their head like they still have to like let go of the idea that it's for kids, you know?
sure.
mhm.
They still have to like work to throw that aside and to dispel that idea. And
Mhm.
so sometimes things go over the top where it seems it's unnecessary to try to like make that point. And I feel
Sure.
like Castlevania does a pretty good job of just being honest about it. You know,
Mhm.
they don't pull punches, but they
Mhm.
don't do things to like, look, see, we're a cartoon and we can be adult. You know, there's like things
Right.
that have that vibe to it.
Right.
Almost like I mean, I guess it's probably a different purpose, but remember, Andrea, we talked about that one cyberpunk anime.
Yes. Oh my
What was
gosh.
that called again now? Um,
The movie, yeah.
Night something or
Y-
um I can't remember it now, but we
Yep.
we talked about it and it
Yep.
was
It was too
like
much.
had some really good things about it. But and I don't think it came from that. I think it came from like, well, we want to, you know, how do we make basically a porn without it actually being a porn, you know,
Yeah.
like kind of thing. You know, but
Sure.
but that kind of thing is done to varying degrees.
Mhm.
I won't say for shock value, just
Mhm.
for the idea that look how
Look,
adult
we're
we can
adults.
be. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Hmm.
Well, and I think in
So,
Castlevania, I think that may be what they were doing, but maybe it was also showing like I think people do want to show like look how horrible humanity can like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
and not
No,
just
that's
in
what I
cartoons,
think.
but in movies sometimes too with people or
Yeah.
TV shows. But like especially in terms of like the priests burning Dracula's wife at the stake, and
Right.
in terms of that town head person who's like
The
just
judge, yeah.
murdering kids. Yeah, the judge.
Yeah.
Like, people have been that horrible, like in history, in real life. Serial
Right.
killers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
And
I think we agree that like Castlevania isn't disingenuous in that way. Like
Mhm.
right. Yep.
other anime can be, but Castlevania felt like it fit. It was horrible, but it fit within the world that Castlevania was
Yep.
creating. It didn't feel
Mhm.
like over
Sure.
the
Right.
top, like so egregious, like, oh my God, can they just like take it down a notch because this is too
Sure.
much? Like,
Right.
you don't
Yeah.
need to
No. It
prove you're an
seemed.
adult
Yeah.
anime.
It fit in there. Yeah. I
Yeah.
agree.
The authenticity really adds to you know, when it allows a creator to do some of these unbelievable stunts and have a show full of with magic and monsters and stuff. But when your
Mhm.
characters or there's some relatable situation that is really feels really grounded, it helps with the whole thing. And I've appreciated that from the beginning with this
Mhm.
series that they managed to do that and stay genuine about it. It's like I always use the example. It's silly, but it's one of those things like if you're if you slept in someone's bed and you're naked and you get up in the morning, no one takes the entire sheet to wrap around themselves as they walk someplace. That's a movie thing so they don't
Sure.
have to show nudity. And
Sure.
it's disingenuous.
Mhm.
And so if they don't do that, it's not shock value, it's just real.
What
How
happened
you
in
And I
real life?
relate.
think that
Right.
this yeah, and I think this anime does that. God,
Sure.
now you have me doing it. This cartoon has me
Animated
doing
series.
yeah, has me you know, they do that well here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um what else? Anything else? I don't want to leave
Any
anything
stone
out there if you
unturned.
guys got yeah, big thoughts. Obviously we
So
could I mean there's all kinds of things a person could talk about with this. There's a lot
Sure.
again, a lot of characters.
Yeah.
So
I,
so Chris brought up an interesting point when we were watching, and it
mm,
was something I hadn't really thought of. So I kind of wondered what you guys thought about it. So in episode 9, we're introduced to a night creature that Chris called walking dentures. And it's that
Mm.
oh.
giant one that's like pulling
Oh yeah.
the wagon, and it's
Walking
just
pictures. Yeah.
yeah. So he called it walking dentures. Um, and so besides just like making me laugh, he made me think about like how different night creatures are formed. Like
Mhm.
how we can have this like giant, you know, basically like a giant wrecking ball of a creature. Like once it's released from the shackles, it grows like how many
Mhm.
times its size, and it's
Mhm.
huge. And we have that, but then we also have like a night creature like the fly that talks
Mm-hmm.
to Isaac and, like, has these deep philosophical conversations
Yeah.
with him, like eats the berry and is like,
Yeah.
oh, I remember my human life. How do you
Yeah.
th- uh, how do you think like these different night creatures are formed? Like,
Yeah.
is it based on who you were in life, or is it like the
Sure.
forge master who, kind of decides like, okay, I'm gonna bring this guy back, but I'm gonna bring him back as like a bruiser, you
Sure.
know? I don't know. It just made me
I
think
get.
about I hadn't
Yeah.
really thought about the
Yeah.
way that night creatures are different.
Sure. Sure. Two thoughts. I agree. Um, I actually don't but although I don't actually necessarily think that all of like Death's army that stormed the castle were necessarily quote unquote night creatures in the conventional sense that we've seen um
Sure.
in the rest of the season. But I will say, even if you just look at night creatures, you can see like kind of like the like
Like lizard
boring bat-like
creatures and
ones that are pretty like just
yeah,
animalistic, and
standard.
ones like standard versus like the fly who I love is awesome and it
Mhm.
has like these deep philosophical questions and like flashes of his old life and stuff. And so I agree with you, but then I do wonder like, does Death have a different way to make like monsters, or are there just
Sure,
monsters that
sure.
exist in the world
Yeah,
separate from like, vampires making them, or like these vampire blacksmiths making them?
Yep. I think that's a distinction that would be interesting to know because I agree that I think there's probably a split between like beasts and monsters and things of this world,
Hmm.
mhm.
then also creatures that have been unleashed from hell, and
Right.
then
Sure, yeah.
also night beasts or whatever that forge masters have, they have turned dead bodies into them, into
Mhm.
creatures. And so I think there's three or more set of types of things
Sure,
we're seeing here. But
sure.
like you say, even if you talk about the ones that we know are specifically Forge Master created, it is interesting how there's such a variety. Like it's
Mhm.
amazing the onslaught of like basically pawns that are going after Carmela, but then there's a
Mhm.
couple like badass ones that are like fighting right. They're like Isaac
Yeah, that
Shield,
one
the guy that could
yeah, that
fly and
one
always like protect,
yeah.
There's like
like
a horse or
where they're
whatever
like
he rides
higher
at one point.
demons.
Yeah. I feel
What's
like the
that?
Forge Master must have some ability to like influence what he's making, because doesn't he like make a horse night creature like when he needs to like hop out of the back of him at one point or something? Like in the
Right,
middle of the battle.
but,
Hmm.
like, is it all Forge Master? Is it, like, do you have to find the perfect body or, like, is there any influence in, like, the dead body that you choose to make, the
Yeah,
horse
maybe
creature versus the
like
fly creature?
master swordsman or something is maybe much, or
Yeah.
some sort of gladiator fighter
Yeah.
is potentially becomes a much more impressive
Mhm.
demon night beast
Yeah.
Yeah.
than
Oh, right. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me because I hadn't really thought about it before. They were, all just night creatures, and then suddenly we
Yeah.
got this like, wide variety of, how do we get there? And we get to see like Hector literally doing the forging, which we
Hmm.
hadn't seen too much of before. So it's
Sure.
like, what specimen
well,
creates what kind of night creature.
everybody keep an eye out for an AMA hosted by Warren Ellis or anyone
Yeah.
involved here, and we can ask them, find
Yeah.
out.
I was impressed though generally with just the creativity and variety of like crazy murderous creatures they threw at us this
Yes.
season. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty awesome.
Yep.
Yes.
All the
Yeah.
like poisonous things that Alucard had to deal with through the trees
Oh,
and
that was
stuff. And
fun.
Oh, right. That was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like we got to really see a range of Alucard's abilities, and that was
Hmm.
really fun this
Yeah, that
season.
was awesome.
Because of
Mhm.
course before we just saw him like fight his father, which was epic, but I felt like he was hampered in some way. Like,
Yeah,
you're fighting Dracula and it's like this, legendary creature, and now he just gets to like shine on his own in this season.
we really did get a big increase in the variety of monsters because
Yeah.
Yeah.
early on it was all like kind of bat things, it was
Hmm.
similar, the
Yep.
kind of guys that were always coming through. And then and then you obviously had vampires that were enemies and stuff.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
then in this, we got to see Sypha and Trevor going through, and they had to deal with like a cult of
Yeah.
people that
Mhm.
were like trying to sacrifice people or whatever. You know, they were
Mhm.
weird. And then there was like, I forget if they're werewolves or something. Like there was all
Yep.
different kinds. And then all of a sudden, this whole new army of different people coming after Alucard
Right.
and his people. So yeah, it
Well,
was
and
definitely a mix.
we even got,
Yeah.
different kinds of vampires, like the guy who was like flashing around, the like kind of Nordic looking
Yes,
vampire at
specialty
the end there.
abilities with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun too, Like they just kind of,
Yeah, that
said like
mhm.
let's see what we can do with all of these creatures. Like what can they do and what can we showcase? And it was really fun.
So what's everybody's favorite battle? Because that penultimate battle there with the kind of different vampires we hadn't seen with their unique abilities, where the
Mhm.
trios back together, that was really good.
Yeah.
But then Carmela versus Isaac was very
Oh,
good.
so
Mhm.
But
great.
then Trevor versus Death is very good. Like,
Yeah.
anybody have a favorite?
Yeah, if we're talking this season, I think the trio together was my favorite. If we're talking overall, I think season 3, Trevor's final battle, um, that's my favorite.
It was
Who's
very well done. Yeah.
he fighting in that in season 3?
It's
Well,
like
it was the
Oh, it's like
beast that
the
was let
beast.
yeah,
loose, and that the church was like
yep,
the
Yeah.
bringing
Yeah.
and controlling, and
because that
Sypha
was
was in there too. Him.
but it
These
was just
episodes
my
are so
favorite for
packed.
like
I
the
need to
whip.
rewatch them all. Sure.
Hmm.
Like the
Yeah.
animation of the whip and like everything he could do, and it was just so like you could never do this in a live action show because the whip could not change like 60 different lengths in this amount of time, and like
Sure.
sometimes be like seem like it's metal and like got the chain on it, and sometimes seem like a regular whip, and I don't know.
Well, he's
It just
got two.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the best part in season 3 when
Well,
he's
and like
like regular
you
whip, and then
can't
he pulls out the
distinguish.
like Morning
Yeah.
Star whip kind of thing, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh man,
Yep.
dual whipping now.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my favorite battle of all time.
Yeah. I I think I liked the battle, his battle with Death, just because it was such like
Sure.
just because the meaning behind it, and then like
Yeah. Yeah.
what he went through to do, and um. But I mean when the reunion battle too in the castle was awesome for different reasons, and I loved how they had to like it's so like kind of a video game, right? Where I mean, which is it's his roots, so it makes sense. But
Right.
like where they mop up the castle, and then like, oh, we gotta hit these last like final bosses before we get to the real final boss. So you
Yeah.
have to go fight these, like sorcerer vampires. That was sweet. I mean, I don't know. It just
Yeah.
like kind of built and built and built all through episode 9, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
take
I
back all
love
my
the
teasing of you, Phil, because episode 9 was absolutely as epic as you said it was.
Yep.
Feel so satisfied right now. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I kind of need to watch it again. I'd like to watch that battle again you were talking about in season 3, and then watch
Mhm.
this, because felt like there was a difference in sound quality from
Mhm.
season to season, and I don't know if that was just like this, I don't know, the frame of mind I was in, if I'm imagining it or something like that, but I'd like to
Sure.
compare, because I feel like the
Sure.
sound was a lot more dynamic in season 3 than
Mhm.
4, when things got a little more flat. So just a technical thing that
Interesting.
I
Okay.
don't want to say for sure, but I'd like to
Sure.
go back and try to listen again.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I remember when we were initially talking about it, I said like the soundtrack, it felt like the soundtrack to the final boss battle. You know what I mean? Like the background music was just like so a part
yeah.
of the battle itself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I'd be interested to go back and watch that scene
One of the
versus, this one.
one of the coolest parts of season 3 that they didn't really do in season 4, I think, is they like that last final kind of battle. They had like the battle going on, and then they had like Alucard,
Oh yeah, yeah, the juxtaposition.
with the twins,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
they were
And
like
Lenore and
montaging it
Hector
all
and yeah.
together. Yeah, that was really cool, and I think it was pretty
Yeah.
unique just to like the end of that season. But it was
Yeah,
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
totally cool, this one, but It's great.
Yep.